Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United transfer news, and we deliver a raft of news and positive news as well. We've got an update that's just come in the last few minutes from Fabrizio Romano around De Ligt's transfer demand. He wants United, everybody, and we'll talk about why that is. Also, big news coming out from The Athletic that Erik ten Hag will retain full control of transfers in the sense that he will not be given players that he doesn't want. He will get the final say on any player that's presented to him. I think this is big. The whole article's big. There's some really good stuff in there about mistakes of the past, how we've had the likes of Neto, Musiala and Sesko at Manchester United to come as young players and we've let them slip through our fingers. Really interesting piece on how Dan Ashworth will work as well. We'll get into that. It's really interesting, and if you like to understand the deeper meanings of what's going on at United and why we're back and why we're heading in a different direction compared to the mistakes of the past, you need to understand the mistakes of the past, and we'll talk about some of those from this very well written article by Laurie Whitwell. And we've also got a poll running live at the moment, which we'll come to in a few minutes. Should Ten Hag have final say on a transfer? Yes or no? Give us your thoughts on that. I think that's really interesting. But let's have a bit of summary of where we are with transfers. It is a news show. So Fabrizio has revealed another midfielder that we're looking at that's not Agate, that's not Rabiot. We'll talk about him as a potential replacement for Casemiro. Very good option that we've mentioned previously that's not Ederson. Also, we're going to give you the update on De Ligt in a minute, and also Xerxes, what's happening. Chris Wheeler has said that Man United is still looking at Jared Branthwaite, our Man City, in that race as well. And we'll have a look at where we are sitting in relation to exits and what might happen, because I think everybody at this point just wants to see Man United sign a player. And I don't just include the fans in that. I think Sir Jim Radcliffe wants to reveal a player as well. I think Man United are wanting to do that. So where are we at with that, and who is likely to be revealed as a new Man United player with a here we go? So Fabrizio Romano has come out in the last few moments, and basically he is saying that that Manchester. I just read this actually. I mean, this is something for in a few minutes' time. A source close to the club has said, "I would go as far as to venture that there is not a scouting network in the world that can touch on what Manchester United has." This is really interesting because I've said this many a time on this show. The scouts at Manchester United are not the problem. It's what we do with that information. And we're going to blow the doors off in a few minutes' time in relation to some of the mistakes that Manchester United have made under the previous regime. But let's talk about the now. Because those things are going to be they're going to make a massive difference over the next 4 to 5 years. 4 to 5, not 45. So, this is from Fabrizio Romano 10 minutes ago. Man United are the only club with green light from De Ligt to proceed and advance in talks as things stand. No talks are ongoing between agent and PSG as De Ligt's given priority to Manchester United. United are now negotiating with Bayern on fee and deal and structure. I would say that comfortably what we should be getting next is, here we go, full agreement, deal done with De Ligt. That should be the next thing. We have got... I'm going to write a book on transfers, and it's going to be the United Stand Guide to Transfers, because we're all part of it. And as I said many times before, there's the 5 principles of a story, which might be bullshit, might be true, might be an agent pushing a deal and using us. But there's also the stages of an actual genuine transfer. And what you have with that is interest. You then have personal terms agreed with the player. You then have a fee deal done with the club. You then get here we go. And then you get official holding up a few days after that. So with De Ligt, we're on stage 3. We've done personal terms. We've done general interest. We're now at deal done with Bayern Munich, which means here we go is coming next. Why is it that De Ligt wants to come to Manchester United? Well, Fabrizio actually said something very interesting last night, and he said that, we did our video last night, and there was this story from Christian Falk about Bayern Munich's interest with PSG and De Ligt and PSG coming in, and we sort of came to the conclusion last night that the hunch was that this is just, we're at the negotiation stage with Bayern Munich and another club comes in to hijack the deal. How many times have we heard that before to boost the deal? Fabrizio's next update was always going to be interesting because that was going to have to be post PSG's interest And we had that now. The green light is still only with Manchester United. The priority is still only with Manchester United. So with De Ligt, I think it's safe to say the next stage is here we go, deal done. And then it's done. We've had it with Elise, obviously. He's not holding the shirt up with Bayern Munich, but we've had here we go, deal done. So I think that's the next stage. Why does De Ligt want to come to Manchester United is the big question that a lot of people are asking. And I think Fabrizio put it best last night when he said, De Ligt is happy or was happy to go to Bayern Munich from Juventus and was sold a project that he wanted to be part of and they wanted him to be part of. And then things changed, whether it was Thomas Tuchel, whether promises were not made. He's 24 and he wants to be part of a project where he's got 100% trust of the people involved. And the appeal of Manchester United is that Erik ten Hag has fought this battle with Ineos and come out the other side. And he is now going to get everything. 3-year deal, Ruud van Nistelrooy, René Heck, Ashworth, Brailsford. This whole project is a collective project where everybody's on the same sheet. And the attraction, and Fabrizio said this, so I'm not claiming it, but it's absolutely right. What De Ligt wants in his next contract is stability and trust and a project. I think he thought he was going to get that at Bayern Munich. I think some fans at Bayern Munich would like him to be part of that. But that trust has been, has evaporated because of how things have gone over the last year. And I think that's been a glimpse to De Ligt as to how things can change very quickly at a football club. So if he was to go to PSG, well, PSG's turnover of managers, look, Luis Enrique's been there a year. If he doesn't win the Champions League this year, he could be gone in a year and then a new manager comes in and doesn't like De Ligt. So I think that he has a relationship with Ten Hag from Ajax. But I think also the project that we're selling him is the best project he's going to get from a big club. This is 100% trust. You're part of this plan and project. And, the plan is not to bring you in and sit you on the bench and loan in Eric Dyer. So I think that De Ligt, from what I saw of him at Ajax when he was there with the microphone at 19 or 18 as the captain shouting out to the crowd, I think this is somebody that strikes me as somebody that his word is as strong as oak. And I think that he has given us our word. I think he has given his word to Manchester United. This is what I want to do. I don't see anybody else getting involved in this race. I think we've sold him the project and I think he wants to be part of the project. And, that to me is very, very exciting because United clearly want him. And if he clearly wants us, let's get here we go and let's have it. Come on, let's do it. I'm on board. Let's get on board. I have, I've even inspired myself on that one. I think that I'm not worried about the PSG story. I'm not worried about anything. I think Fabrizio coming out again with this and what he said last night, De Ligt, I actually take it as a positive that De Ligt probably wouldn't want to leave Bayern Munich based on the project he thought he was going to, but he just feels a bit let down. That can be to our advantage, that they've wasted the opportunity there. And I think the trust is gone now between Bayern and De Ligt, and I think, he wants to come to us and have a project with us. Look, the transfer itself is still, I think it will go through. Doesn't mean he'll be a massive success at Manchester United, but I'm excited about it. Not every transfer will be. Patrick Lynch says, I want to reiterate, Ineos will have the majority say in any transfer. Ridiculing new players, De Ligt, before they have officially signed is no good. Yeah, I mean, Patrick, I worry about the... I worry about the motivations of some of our fans at the moment. They need to move past the fact that they lost. De Ligt, Ten Hag is staying. They haven't moved past it. Quite rightly, I still get called out about why I'm so positive about Ineos now when, I have said they're an enemy of the football club getting into bed with the Glazers. I said that, this is the worst thing that's happened to the club when they did that. That's thrashing around when you've lost. I lost. I didn't want the Glazers to stay. And we're going to go through in a few minutes. You're going to enjoy the second half of the show as we analyse, this article in The Athletic and the problems in transfers that we've had under the Glazers. There are multiple problems with the Glazers. I didn't want them to stay. I did want a full sale, and I wanted the Glazers out, and I wanted the debt gone. And Ineos won. But I moved on quite quickly because I'd lost. I didn't get what I wanted, and many of you didn't get what you wanted. And, you give Ineos a chance because you have to. if they'd have sacked Ten Hag, I probably would have been very, very hard on them and would have struggled to trust them. But they're doing a lot of things that I actually think, well, fair play. They actually are doing a lot of things that I think many of us think would, they're still on trial. They're still in bed with the Glazers. But, we're giving them an opportunity. I think there's some people who just are very stuck on the fact that Ten Hag didn't get the sack, and it's not going to do them any good because they're in the minority and they're actually coming across as quite whiny now when things are really, looking up for the first time in ages. Anyway, we can get into all that because bottom line is you're all voting on this poll. Should Ten Hag have the final say on a transfer? Breaking news this morning that we're going to get into in a little bit more depth in a minute is this article that Laurie Whitwell's written in The Athletic with some really good sources who are like ex-scouts and coaches at United, a bit about Ashworth, how it's going to work now, how it worked in the past, the mistakes of the past, and how there's so many open goals for Man United. But, should Ten Hag still have a final say? It's very much like those people who wanted Ineos to buy the club and told us that in 2 years they'd get rid of the Glazers and buy the whole club, which is never going to happen. And it's the same thing now where they said, well, Ineos are going to come in and Ten Hag will have no power. And oh, hello, he's still got some power. They're bullshitters. They're bullshitters. They've got no info and they pull it out their arse. Ineos were going to buy the whole club in 2 years and the Glazers were gone. That's not happening. And Ineos were going to remove the power from any manager and the manager would just be a puppet. That's not happening either. So we'll get into that in a moment. But look, the latest on Ligt is very, very positive. Where are we at with Xerxes? I want to talk about where we are with Xerxes and just a summary of where we are with transfers, and then we can delve into that interesting stuff as well. The Ligt stuff's just hot off the press, so we've done that. Xerxes at the moment is it's a funny one with Xerxes. I've got to be honest. I mean, in days gone past, Eric says let them cry. In days gone past, and I'll catch up with your chats in a moment because we've had a few in. In days gone past, I was even thinking this morning I could have done the thumbnail as instead of we're back positive, I could have gone more delay negative. And I think that's an indication of where I'm at, where a lot of you are at. In last summer, year before, I 100% would have had a thumbnail today, more delay as the thumbnail, and Ten Hag transfer frustration. I 100% would, I would. And I would have been right to do that because that would have been the theme of how we feel at the moment. But instead, it's a more positive. Ligt transfer request. He wants to come to United. Ten Hag transfer demand. He's going to get a final say. And we're back on the thumbnail. Because I think there is a positive theme at the moment. But on Xerxes, honestly, the headline is more delay. Like, it is. It's not a reason to be negative, but there is a delay. The latest on Xerxes is that he is not going to make his mind up until the Netherlands are out of the Euros. Well, the way the Netherlands and that side of the draw is going at the moment, they might not be out until a week on Sunday. And if they win or lose, that's going to take you a few days to get over it. So we could be 2 weeks off Xerxes if he's waiting until after the Euros. Every indication is that we will win the race for Xerxes, but I'm always very nervous when players are making up their mind over such a long period of time, because when you look at the Xerxes deal, and I do think we'll get it done because he was going to go to AC Milan. And Ben Jacobs made a great point yesterday when he said, there might be a bit of frustration in the United fan base that the deal for Xerxes has not been done yet. But actually, the fact that Xerxes is in the Euros is probably beneficial because if he hadn't been called up to the Euros, that wouldn't have allowed the delay for Man United to hijack the deal, and he might have just signed for AC Milan because he was on holiday and he was ready to go. So there is a delay at the moment. What we need to understand with the Xerxes deal is, and I think, knowledge is power. Where we are with Xerxes, and it might frustrate people, I would say I don't necessarily understand the delay. If that would be the harshest thing I would say. There's no negotiations here. There is no negotiation with Bologna. We're not, we're negotiating with Bayern Munich for De Ligt and PSG for Agate. That could take how long's a piece of string? Today, tomorrow, 2 weeks, whatever. We know that. There's no negotiations with Bologna. The release clause is active. We're not going to negotiate that down. It's £34 million, which is a very good fee. AC Milan and Man United we're not negotiating with Bologna to try and get that down. It's a good fee. So the only decision here is Xerxes. And he is apparently saying, I'm focused on the Netherlands at the moment. The same Netherlands I've not kicked a ball for and never will. I mean, Koeman is not going to use him. He won't even bring Brobby on, so he's not going to use Xerxes. But that's where we're at the moment. So, look, I think we'll get that deal done. But a lot of people are like, why? Look, I said on Sunday there was an indication that he would make his mind up on July the 1st and we would have this here we go thing by today. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened, and the only reason it hasn't happened is because Xerxes, for whatever reason, is not willing to, publicly put his decision out there, which is going to be very interesting because in the same camp, Ligt is ready to go with Man United. Like if we get a deal done with Bayern Munich, this will be announced. It will be here we go by Friday. Whereas Xerxes seems to be, is he undecided, some would say? Could he still pivot towards AC Milan? Now, that's interesting because whilst he hasn't signed for us, and I think he will do, where do we go? Where do we go if we don't get Xerxes? Because we know it was Sesko at the start of June and then he stayed. And for the last 3 weeks, it's been Xerxes. And we need a striker. So if we don't get Xerxes, where do we pivot to in early July and negotiate with somebody else until early August? So we need to get this deal done. I think we will, but when it's going to happen will be very, very interesting. Just on that, before I just update on a couple of other transfers as well, just another, we like to bring conversation and thought. The whole point of United Stand as we go into our 10th year at Christmas is that the tagline in the early days, 10 years ago, was real fan opinion for real fans. I mean, I don't like the word real, but that's what the tagline was 10 years ago. Everybody changes their philosophy. But I think realistically, in a sentence, what the United Stand is meant to be is you're never meant to agree with anybody, whether it's me or anybody else. What you're meant to do is be inspired to think for yourself and be passionate about the thing that you love. And I like it when we generate between each other the ability to go off and think about something or think about something now. And what I was thinking about this morning was how if you look at Ligt and you look at Agate and you look at Xerxes, the three most likely signings for Manchester United at the moment, all three of them are playing in a major tournament for their country and are probably going to get 2 or 3 weeks off afterwards. The chances of them playing against Fulham, well, what are they? A 50%? 100%? I mean, Uruguay are looking good. The Netherlands are looking good. If they hit the final, or even the semi-finals only 3 days before the final, they ain't going to be back training until the start of August. So, what I'm saying is I do not want to play Fulham at home with Maguire and Lindelof at centre-back. We've got to hit this season hard. And we've dropped points at the start of the season, every season under Ten Hag. So it's something for the future, but a lot of our team aren't going to hit training until the first week of August. We already know the likes of Bruno is going to be in that position. Delot is going to be in that position. Garnacho is going to be in that position. Mainu, Martinez. I mean, you look at our best players last year, Bruno, Delot, Mainu, Garnacho, and Rasmus. Only Rasmus is likely to be back training he's the only one who's probably going to go on the tour. So, and none of our signings are going to go on the tour. So, you lot are all getting excited about the tour. I enjoy the tour as well, but you're not going to see you can already tell you're not going to see any new signings on the tour, and you're not going to see most of our good players on the tour because they're going to be on holiday. But more importantly, we can live with that. But even if we announce Xerxes and Ligt and Agate today, they're not going to be training with the team until at least August because they're all... And it's a good thing. It shows you that they're good players. You want your players to be playing for their country. But, yeah, we're a project is what I'm trying to say. Just quickly on the midfield situation, a bit of new news here. Fabrizio news as well. Agate, nothing really to report on him. United are still very interested in him. But Fabrizio has basically mentioned João Gomez of Wolves, which I think is a player that's well worth throwing back into the equation. So Fabrizio has said that, look, Man United have scouted João Gomez of Wolves extensively. There are a few other clubs looking at him. He is seen as a midfield option for Manchester United that could come in and instantly do a good job and be a player that is of an age where, he's coming in at under 25 again and, he's hungry, about £40 million. No concrete move from United yet, but definite interest in Gomez. So, look, I think everybody's locked in on Ugarte at the moment. I like the idea of Ugarte, but I don't dislike the idea of Gomez at Wolves. I think he's a player that's not been mentioned for a long time, but I do like him. I mean, I think there was a time where Real Madrid were even sniffing around him as well. But look, the more options we've got, the better. I think Ugarte is the hype choice at the moment, and I would put myself into that hype, no problem. But we also have to remember that Amrabat was a hype choice last summer, didn't work out. So, Ugarte is not De Jong and he is not Casemiro. He's not an open goal. This guy's going to revolutionise Manchester United. Everybody's queuing up for him. There is an element of risk to him. You know what? We might not even be able to get a deal done with PSG. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Before we get into this interesting piece from The Athletic, though, just another bit of transfer news that came out last night. Just keep an eye on João Gomez at Wolves is all I'm saying. Just before we move into that Athletic article, just a few other bits. Tom Heaton has signed a 1-year deal with Man United. No issue with that. Third choice goalkeeper. Good lad. Good person to have around the dressing room, definitely. Got a good head on his shoulders. I just wonder if that means Johnny Evans will get his soon as well, because for the same reason, it's just good to have those senior heads around the dressing room. Obviously, they're not going to be massively, we're not asking him to play in goal in the FA Cup final, are we? And also, Chris Wheeler of the Daily Mail last night was given an update on Ligt, which is pretty much what everybody already knows, but also said that Man United still retain a strong interest in Branthwaite and would like to sign both. I think it's really important to acknowledge that Jared Branthwaite remains of major interest to Manchester United, because he does. And I think it's also important to remember that Branthwaite and De Ligt would be what we were sort of looking at with Todibo and De Ligt. Todibo and Branthwaite, a left footer and a right foot centre back. That's what we're looking for. A lot of people are talking about two right footed centre backs, and we may do that. The aim is to bring balance to that centre-back roster. And to do that, we've never had a left-footed centre-back apart from Martinez. And we need to replace Varane, who, for me, was our best centre-back on ability. So De Ligt and Branthwaite would still make a lot of sense, because you get a left-footer and a right-footer. So we are still interested in Branthwaite. But I think what I would say about Branthwaite is that it would be nice to rule him out and move on. It would be nice to get the deal done and move on. What's not nice is to be left in this grey area of, he's still major interest, but nothing's happening. And I think that with Branthwaite, the door just needs to be shut or opened by Everton, really. Like, are you holding out for 70 million and that's the end of that? Or are you actually looking to do a deal? And if you are, let's bloody get on with it, because, it doesn't serve or help anybody. But I think Branthwaite will end up being a test case for Manchester United. A lot of people have said this, and I think you're right. This is a test case for the new United structure. Do you hang about around a deal all summer and end up paying stupid money? Or do you just go, I really like the player, but, we're not interested? There has been, there was talk yesterday that Man City are interested. It's from the Sun. It's from the Sun. Everton Football Club ain't talking to the Sun. And I doubt Pep Guardiola's ringing him up and telling him he's interested either. So I'm not interested in Man City. If Man City swoop in and spend £70 million on Branthwaite, they can afford it. Doesn't mean we're wrong to do it. If somebody can afford to do something, then, they can afford to do it. I remember one Christmas, I wanted an Amiga 500 and we couldn't afford it. And my mate got it. I remember being told, look, at the end of the day, that's life. They can afford to do it. We haven't got the money to do it. And that's just the way it is. But I don't think Man City are going to go for him anyway. And even if they do, so what? Like, we know Man City are absolutely ripped. If you walk into the gym at the moment, Man United, we need a bit of work in the gym. And Man City walk in and look, they're ripped. Are they on steroids? Look, no comment. But they walk in that gym, they've got the six-pack, they've got the biceps, they are fit as whatever, and we're walking in, and we've let ourselves go a little bit. Look, let everyone else shout about the steroids and cheating. The point is they're ripped, and we're not. We've got to put the work in. And, you know, if somebody swoops in and takes Branthwaite for 70 million and everyone wants to laugh at us, I'd just go, we're not at that point yet. We're not at that point to do that yet. We can't afford to do that yet. We're not fit enough as a club to do those sort of things. That debt that the Glazers have given us, you know, that's like a beer belly on your stomach. We've got to get rid of that debt. And I think that's a good analogy of where Man United are at the moment. When you compare us to Arsenal and Man City and other clubs, you're walking into a gym and they are, in the mirror, you know, specimens. And you've got your bloody T-shirt on and your tracksuit bottoms on because you don't want to take your top off. You know, we're not in a position where we can do that. And, you know, those gains to be able to do that don't happen overnight. And people who think, oh, yeah, we've got to get in a title race next year or we've got to sack Ten Hag, it's going to take time. It will take time. We can offer Wan-Bissaka and 40 million to Everton for Branthwaite, says Gareth. If Glazers are still assigning the checks, we're screwed, says Abdul. What's worrying me is we haven't made a single outgoing yet, says Trey. James Cave says, morning. Well, just on the outgoing comment, Trey, I wouldn't be that worried because if you know you're going to sell player A before August the 31st, you don't need to be in a rush to sell player A in the first week of July. And what I mean is, like, there's negotiation tactics, isn't there? Like, I've said this before. The importance of buying players at the start of July is so that they're ready to play against Fulham and integrated. That's the only reason. From a financial point of view, selling players, if they're not part of your plans, it doesn't really matter whether they go at the end of August or the start of July, because financially, it goes on the books in the same year anyway. So I think with sales, we're probably a little bit more relaxed about it. But a lot of players aren't even back yet as well. Look, I was looking at it. Man United are playing their first pre-season game a week on Monday. Less than 2 weeks away, we play Rosenborg. On Saturday, 2 weeks, we play Rangers, and then we're off on the US tour. So things are gonna, you know, we're back in training on Monday. This Monday, the players are back. Are we going to see Jadon Sancho, Donny van der Beek walking in with their shoes? Unfortunately, we are. Like, and I'm not even going to mention Sancho. We're going to see Donny van der Beek walking into Carrington with a smile on his face and his boots under his arm. That's a bad sign. I love Donny. He's a lovely lad, but that is a bad symbol of no change. And that is just the way it's going to be, because a lot of these players are on big wages. Morning, Mark. If we fail to get Branthwaite and Todibo, who would be your pick for the second centre-back? Is there a chance we go for a better left-back and use Shaw? I don't think we can rely on Shaw, James, at the moment. Look, Anacho's a left-back at Sporting Lisbon. I think he'd be a good shout. Mark, it's the 3rd of July and no ins or outs. At what point do we start questioning this structure, says Rio. Yeah, they've got to start motoring. Even I would admit that. They have to. You know, even the likes of Greenwood leaving and what's happening with Sancho, you know, these things have to happen. Looks like United are trying to sign the players harder to get during Euros and go for the not playing ones later. Do the harder first method. I'm excited, says Akil. Van Dijk's probably been in Xerxes' ear, says Black Hole. Liam says, let's give Ineos some time. Quick transfers usually mean that the buying club was fleeced. We need to find good value in the market. That was from Liam. Evan Ferguson or João Pedro are good alternatives, says Rahil. Both probably expensive. Kuna at Wolves as well. Sean says, yes, it's true, Mark. I work with an ex-Man United scout and he said he found loads of talent and United never bothered to follow them through, says Sean. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Good morning, Mark. Been driving for 20 hours now. Still 5 more to go. This show keeps me up, says James. Make sure you're taking a rest, James. Ray Carl Brown Amore, a legend of the chat for many years, has gifted 5 memberships. What a legend. Absolutely fantastic, Ray. Hope you're doing well. Mark Kennedy says, any update on Sancho and Greenwood leaving? Need to move on some of these players as well. Well, they're both going to leave, Mark, but you know, as Nush says, are we going to see Mason Greenwood and Jadon Sancho walking into Carrington on Monday morning with their boots under their arm? I think it's a bad look for many reasons. If that happens, it doesn't look good. It looks really bad. on Ineos and Man United if Sancho and Greenwood walk into training, because it will generate a lot of noise about, oh, could they stay? You know, has he apologised to Ten Hag again? And it's a step backwards. It's a conversation that doesn't need to be had. You know, remove them, the conversation doesn't happen. So are we going to see an escalation of that in the next few days? I don't know. You know, it's Wednesday today. I think Ten Hag has to have some sort of say in the transfers. At the end of the day, Eric has to work with these guys, says Geeky Stuff. John Davies says, De Ligt excites me for the future. Clearly, Ten Hag has put forward his vision to Ineos and they seem to be backing him. And Ray says, I hope you have a great summer. I'm positive about Ineos at the minute. They're trying but needs more. Have a good day, says Ray. Legend, thank you. We've been much slicker this summer than we're used to. Next big test is how much we pay for De Ligt, says McElvis. Would Agate, De Ligt, Branthwaite and Xerxes be wishful thinking, and would that be a successful window? No, I think, Miad, they're all possible. It's not wishful thinking. And Mike says, morning Mark, any updates on Pellistri getting to the point now where we need to make a decision? Well, Pellistri's doing very well in the Copa America, isn't he? So, you know, I think his decision is going to be later on as well. Andrew CJS says, thanks for the content. Surely Somerville and Rutter from Leeds seem like good potential players. It's Leeds though, isn't it? It's not easy to work with Leeds. Andy Weatherall's gifted a membership. Thank you, Andy. Hope you're doing well. And Joe Roberts has gifted 5. Absolute legend, Joe. Thank you very much for that. Glenn C says, the best way to give the outs a gentle nudge out the door is to bring someone in their position. A bit of competition will get them thinking. Exactly, Glenn. Exactly. He makes a great point. If you want to get rid of these players, start buying people in their position and then they'll be on to their agent. Look, if you bring in Branthwaite and De Ligt, then Maguire and Lindelof are going to be onto their agent, get me a move. Absolutely correct. Regardless of who we sign or how much we pay, comforted with the fact that these decisions have gone through a proper process with a group of very capable people, says Bobby. Well, look, I want to talk about this now. Let's have a look at your poll results. So, should Erik ten Hag have a final say on transfers? 74% of you say yes, and 26% of you say no. Now, I think that's a little bit high. Based on some people just, you know, were sort of falling into this myth where there were people putting it out there that Ineos were going to remove any control in transfers from the manager, whether it's Ten Hag or the new one, and that this was going to be management by committee where they buy the players and they sell the players and the manager just gets on with coaching. And this was what we were being sold by so-called experts who, you know, told us that Ineos were going to buy the club and then 2 years in 2026, they'd own all of the club and the Glazers would be gone. Total bullshit, and total bullshit about this committee as well. The truth is, and this is where we're going to start looking at some of this article that's in The Athletic today. So David Brailsford has had significant influence in putting the team together around Barada and Ashworth and Wilcox and Christopher Vavell. The strategic decisions will be, industry-led on football-specific decision-making, such as picking targets. However, Erik ten Hag, the manager, will retain a crucial vote on any incomings, and no player will be signed without his agreement. I think this is perfect. This is what I always wanted. I do not like the Brighton model. You know, I do not like the Brighton model at all. I find it's, these are the players you're having, and these are the players we're taking away. Managers are puppets. What's that all about? We're Manchester United. I don't see that happening with Pep Guardiola. I don't see that happening with Arteta. What's the point in being Man United manager if you've got no say in the players that are going to come and go? What's the point in having press conferences? What's the point in asking a question? You need a manager that has a say. What we're crying out for is people that can say, we're not going to do that. And what I mean is, Erik ten Hag can say, I want you to blow all the budget on Frankie de Jong, even though he hates Manchester, and then the board go and do it. The board has to be able to say, Eric, we're not doing that. But what also needs to happen the other way is the board can't say we're signing Wout Weghorst. I know Ten Hag would probably like that, but we want to spend the whole transfer budget on Chris Wood, and Ten Hag's like, I don't want that to happen. He should have a veto on that as well. So what I'm saying is the ideal is it works both ways. Ten Hag can't demand a certain player, and the board can't demand a certain player the other way. And that's what you want. A committee that is, all powerful, all knowledgeable, but works together. And that is what we want. I was a little bit concerned because, these people start talking nonsense and you think they might actually have some information that, Ten Hag was going to end up being a puppet, or the next manager was going to end up being a puppet. We have got the ability and minds of Barada and Wilcox and Ashworth and Favell now, and Brailsford and Blanc. All these people are capable of saying this is how it needs to be done. But it's even more exciting that Ten Hag's in that room as well, and it's an open conversation, and everybody has to agree. Both parties should have rights to object, says Chun. Exactly, and that's where we're at, and I completely agree with that. And I think we will be a better football club because of it. So I think that's really, really important. And obviously, going back to Ligt, who has basically said he wants to come to Manchester United, he is the sort of prototype of how this is going to work. We know that Erik Ten Hag is not going to say no about De Ligt because he had him at Ajax and he will really like him. Suits the way he wants to play. But the board will have obviously gone through it together and gone, yeah, this guy ticks the boxes of everything we want: age, mentality, talent, price, hunger. This is the player that we want, and fused together. So De Ligt is a prime example of that. Xerxes, whether you like it or not, will be another player that they've all agreed on. Agate, another player that they've all agreed on. So when you think about a transfer target now, you can always have your own personal feeling about it. Of course you can. But rest assured that any player that we're signing now, they're all going to have agreed on. Somebody might have been voted down by the majority, but they're all going to have to agree on it in some way, shape or form. Sid75 said, having the final say gave us Onana and Mount. You see, Sid's not listened at all. Sid's in my opinion, Sid, you're one of those anti-Ten Hag people who just run off on an agenda and do not listen to reason, because what you've just described is what won't happen again. But you're making out like Ten Hag having the final say will lead to Onana and Mount again. Like, you've just described the problem before, not what the situation is now. There is no way that Onana and Mount would have been signed under this new regime. Ten Hag might have asked for them, and they would have said no for numerous reasons, because there were other priorities, actually. Not because Mount and Onana are bad players, but we needed a centre-back last summer. That was a priority. We ended up with Johnny Evans. So that wouldn't happen now. And you're trying to make out that it still will, because you're making out that Ten Hag's in control of the whole transfer policy, which he's not. Ten Hag, as I said, could say, I want Frankie de Jong. He won't get him. Unless the club are happy with it, they won't get him. Whereas last year, I don't think that was going on. And I think that's too much power. If you gave Mourinho total control at Man United, I dread to think what he would have done. Rashford, Martial, Luke Shaw, God knows who might be gone. And God knows who he would have brought in. Pep Guardiola needs controlling. Jurgen Klopp needs controlling, but they must have a say. And United haven't had that balance. We haven't had that balance at all. Other interesting pieces from this article. Rahul says, it should, as a team, you say, Mark, with manager having the last say, the way you avoid a mishmash of the players in the squad is if we change managers, says Rahul. Cameron Stewart, welcome to the Members Club. Would you go for Conceição of Portugal, says Mark? Not based on Euros. I don't buy players based on the Euros. I'd have to be honest and say I've not seen enough of him in domestic football to make my mind up. But if United decide they want to go for him, I would hope that they have. There's been multiple reports this morning about Real Madrid's Gutierrez, who was at Girona last season, agreeing a 34 million fee. Anything on this, is Alexander? I've not seen anything about Man United and that. Damien says, I don't understand the De Ligt hate. He's played very, very well for Ajax, Juventus and Bayern. Yeah, well, I think it's some weird attachment to Ten Hag, isn't it? Mark Makustra, welcome to the Members Club, and you've given us a super chat as well. Absolute legend for that. But look, just a bit of a glimpse here into the past of Manchester United that I wanted to bring in from this article in The Athletic. I've said this for a while now. Some of you have, been party to those conversations. To some of you, it might be new information. But effectively, at Manchester United, there is this quite right what would you call it? Frustration and perception is the word, that our recruitment is shit. But the scouting that Man United have done over the last 10 years isn't shit. And now I mentioned at the start of the show, in this article, it talks about there's probably very few clubs in the world that have the scouting network that Manchester United have. And that's a fact. We have an amazingly big scouting network around the world. And the instant reaction to that is, well, why is our recruitment so shit of, young, talented players? Most of the signings we've made over the last 10 years have been Pogba's or Sancho's or Bruno's, people who have already established themselves as a talent, and then we pay big dollar for them, or big pound or euro. That's not good scouting. You don't need scouts all around the world to go and get Jadon Sancho from Dortmund. You just need to turn your telly on when the Champions League is on. So why is that such a problem for United if they've got such a great scouting network? And I've said this a few times because I've known a few scouts over the years, and I know some scouts now. And I know for a fact some of the names that we have put forward, almost, you put them in. What I was told is you do your reports on good players, and then a few months later, they're tearing it up another club. And you wonder what happened to your report. It's almost like it goes into a shredder. And that has been happening at Manchester United for a very, very long time. We have scouted really good players that could have been really good players for United, and the scout does their job, and then nothing ever happens. And it's really interesting, actually, because in this piece in The Athletic, there's just a few examples here that, and it's I can tell you stories, but it's actually good to just read some of this stuff out so that you can understand, the things that have gone on. Pedro Neto of Wolves and Portugal, playing in the Euros. In early 2017, second-year scholar in Braga's youth setup, Neto was invited to United's Carrington training base, having been recommended by Man United scouts, and took part in an academy match at Lee Sports Village. United would have only had to pay a nominal training compensation to sign him. Recruitment staff pressed for the move to happen, but those responsible waited several weeks, and Neto signed a contract with Braga and then went on loan to Lazio. We know Jude Bellingham. All right, he was quite well known. We know that went through our fingers, but that was probably more high profile. In 2018, United were offered the chance to take Musiala on trial. He was just about to be let go from Chelsea. United youth scout Andreas Hermann had watched him at Germany training and regarded him as the best player there. Musiala, there were complications with the deal, and United, conscious of regulations, decided not to enter the running. And then there's Benjamin Sesko, who United had scouted and had put forward in 2018. The scouts have done their job again. So, that, the scouts have done their job there. Neto at Carrington didn't do the deal. Musiala, recommended, didn't do the deal. And then Sesko, recommended. Man United are informed that Salzburg are going to spend €2 million on the striker and take him from his homeland. United only bid $1 million. And then they were asked to bid again and only went up to 1.2 million, and he signs for Salzburg. There will be hundreds and hundreds of stories like that with Manchester United. Hundreds of them. But that's Musiala, Sesko and Neto, who have all been put forward by our scouting network, and United have decided not to do the deal. So it's not a scouting issue. The scouting network at Man United probably does need a bit of work. But Caicedo was another one that had been put forward from South America. And we didn't do that deal either. So, there will be so many players that United have decided not to do. And the big feedback I've always had is, yes, it will come down to money. Yes, it will come down to incompetence. But look at the way Man United do transfers, and they want to do them. Man United are trying to sign Harry Maguire, or Bruno Fernandes, or Jadon Sancho, and the whole world knows they're trying to sign them, and still Man United will take weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Imagine what they do with a youngster that's not high profile and nobody's actually focused on, they take even longer. And that's the problem. You know, Man United are slow at transfers. And when it comes to youth players, you've got to be quick, because clubs are snapping up these teenagers because they know they could be looking at the next big thing. And you look at the way United do a big high profile transfer, imagine how slow and indecisive they are on something they don't understand. And that was the feedback I always got. You've got people in that football club who sign the checks who don't understand football. They sort of understand it if they're signing Paul Pogba or Jadon Sancho, but you give them, you know, a star player from Germany who's 16 who's going to be the next big thing. They haven't got a bloody clue what they're talking about, and they certainly don't want to give a couple of million euros for it. So this is going to change. This is going to change. There's no reason for it to ruin your Wednesday morning, but Haaland was another one as well. But yeah, Neto, Musiala, Haaland, Sesko, big name players that could have been at Man United, but we dropped the ball. This has been going on for years and years and years. It's going to change. You're going to have people at the club now who just won't let that happen. But the positive is, I think I hear a lot of people saying our scouting network's crap. Our scouting network's good. You know, there's so many scouts out there that have put forward good players, and then it feels like it goes into a shredder because they never hear anything. And then they get the shit, and actually it's the decision maker. I mean, look, if I'm running a business, you know, if I'm running a restaurant, and I've got people who are going out looking at other restaurants saying, this, look at this recipe. I was in this restaurant last night. They sold out of it in the first hour, you know, and I tasted it and I've took a note, and these are all the ingredients you need to get. And then I look at it and go, yeah, I'll look at that tomorrow. And then I lose it. It's gone. But I've still been given the information. I've still been given the ingredients to make something that's going to make our restaurant better, but I've ignored it or I've thrown it in the bin. And that's what's been going on at Man United for a very long time. I thoroughly believe and agree with that statement that Man United's scouting network is better than most clubs in the world, but we don't use it. It's like having a Ferrari in the garage. We just don't use it, and we don't do it very, very well. But the positive is, you know, and I think there's a lot of positives at the moment. The positive is that this is highlighted, and we've got people, you know, Dan Ashworth's been at Brighton. They know how to do this sort of stuff. Barada's been at Man City. They know how to do this stuff. Blanc's been at Juventus and PSG. They know how to do this stuff. Wilcox knows how to do this stuff as well. Ten Hag's been at Ajax. They know how to do this stuff. We've got people in a room now. And Sir David Brailsford is somebody that, you know, is all about sporting excellence and margins, etc. We've got people in a room now that are going to sit in the room and go, what a load of shit that is. This is what we're going to do now. But the overarching thing for me is that, and I think we've got to grasp this, is that we are back. Man United are back because we're starting to do things the right way. We're not going to get ripped off on transfers anymore. We are going to bring in the right mentality players. We are going to get rid of the deadwood. We are going to scout younger talent better so that we don't miss out on the players like Musiala and Neto and Bellingham again. All those things are going to happen. But everything I've just said there will take time. It will not mean we're winning the Premier League next year with the best football in the world. It will take time. How long it's going to take and whether it'll even be enough to topple Man City, who've been doing this for years, I don't know. But we will get better because these are open goals that we should have been scoring for the last decade, and they've took us to the bottom of the barrel. But we are going to find our way back. It's just going to take time. Recruitment of young players, if we start doing it properly now, you buy a 16-year-old from Spain who's going to be the next Fabregas, you're not going to see that for 4 or 5 years. You miss out on Branthwaite because you're not going to spend £70 million and you go for somebody else. You'll benefit from that over the next few years because clubs will know not to try and screw you over, but you're not going to necessarily benefit from it in the first season. Things are going to take time. I agree with Wolf Wall, though. No club has got time. Look, our aspirations for next season, defined aspirations where below that is failure, is not to win the title. The project is to win the Premier League. We will not do that in year 1 or 2. That's all I'm saying. In year 1, Champions League football. In year 2, Champions League football. Domestic trophies would be nice. Maybe a Europa League this year. Year 3, you want to be in a position like Arsenal. You want to be competing. Year 4, competing. But I think the first 2 years are about Champions League football, maybe picking up more domestic trophies or a Europa League. But the first 2 years for me are about stabilisation and growth. And we are not in the Champions League. And over the last 10 years, how many times have we qualified for the Champions League 2 years in a row? We have to start doing that. That's part of the project. How does the work of Wilcox, Berardi and Blanc differ? What responsibilities does each of them have? Blanc is on the board, so he would have quite high up say on things. You know, I would say that Blanc is more senior than all of them because he sits on the board with Sir David Brailsford. More advisory, more senior, less hands-on. Berardi is the CEO, so he would be in the Ashworth or Woodward position. So he would be the main guy running the football club day to day. And Wilcox is technical director, so he would be working alongside Ashworth and Ten Hag around the vision of the football club, the technical direction, recruitment, scouting, performance analysis and all that lot. So really the hierarchy goes Wilcox, Berardi, Blanc, but Berardi is probably the most powerful person because he's running the club on a day-to-day basis. Sid says, I actually agreed with you, but most of the fans voted for Ten Hag to have the final say, which would worry me, says Sid. No, I think, Sid, should Ten Hag have final say on a transfer? I think I understand what you mean, Sid. Yeah, sorry. But what that actually means is should Ten Hag have the final say on a transfer in the sense that if this Ineos team say we're buying I don't know, Sesko, and Ten Hag says, I don't want him, then we shouldn't buy him. You shouldn't have a player forced on him. That's what we're saying. And the article actually says that no player can be bought without Ten Hag being happy with it. But Ten Hag can't buy a player without the board being happy with it. And that's the way it should work. It should be, you know, dual responsibility where everybody agrees. I think where one can overrule the other completely and say, yes, I am having that player. I think being the vote that says no is fine. Nobody should have the overarching power to say yes. Like, it shouldn't be, we're getting that player and you can all shut up. Would you come to do a show in Perth when United come out next? Robbo, I'd love to do that. Be interesting to see if United ever actually don't do an American tour again, because it's, how many years in a row we've done America now? 3, I think. If Ten Hag has full control, why have we brought in all these people to make the tea? Yeah, Dazzo doesn't understand it as well. Sorry, Dazzo. I don't know whether it's the poll that doesn't make it clear. Basically, Ten Hag doesn't have full control. He has final say. Final say. So if your missus, if you've got one, or whatever, says, I'm going to make lasagna tonight, and you go, I'd rather we had a spaghetti bolognese, use the sauce for spaghetti, you've got the final say on it. You're not going to get lasagna. But so is the person who's cooking it. If Ten Hag has full control, why have we brought in all these people? That was from Dazzo. Ten Hag will likely have a tiebreaker vote rather than a veto. If the committee is an impasse, Ten Hag's vote could be decisive, says Liam. I think people are misunderstanding it, actually. I think you're thinking about a relationship that's toxic, whereby, Berardi and Ashworth say, we want to buy player A, and Ten Hag says, no, I don't want him. What actually happens is they sit in a room before the decision has been made. So go back to that lasagna. Ten Hag won't need to say no to the lasagna. He wants spaghetti bolognese because he'll have been part of the conversation about what we're having for tea anyway. And in a transfer sense, if you think about Ligt, that will have been discussed by everybody. We need a right-sided centre-back. What about Ligt? Yeah, I like that. Yeah, let's do it. We need a right-sided centre-back. What about I don't know, Shah at Newcastle? No, I don't really like him. All right, move on. You know, we're not going to get to the point where the board do work on a deal and say we're buying him, and then Ten Hag says I don't want him. They'll all be part of the same conversation. Maybe some people aren't. understanding that. I don't know. Anyway, interesting that there were a couple of seasons under Ollie and Ten Hag where we were as up there in December, but then didn't push on because we ignored January, says Glenn. Yeah, I'd like to see us be a little bit more active in the January transfer window, Glenn. It'd be interesting. We've ignored the January transfer window for years, so it'd be interesting to see how that works. Matt says it's interesting to think how many technical staff United want to join United when we actually get proper people in post. I mean, I can't wait for us to change the coaching setup, mate, to be honest with you. I think that's the big one for me. You know, we've still got a lot of coaches and certainly fitness people who've been here, you know, way before even Ranić, you know, Ollie, even before Mourinho, some of them. We need a whole raft of changes throughout the whole club. Have you watched any of the Copa America? Says Artak. United should look to Pacho or no, I haven't looked at any of the Copa America. Ross, I'm too tired after the Euros. I might watch a little bit now. It's, you know, spreading out a little bit, but I'm just knackered at the moment. Ross says if we sign Xerxes, if him and Højlund are unavailable due to injury, who's the third choice striker? Should sign another striker, but probably won't. Well, beggars can't be choosers, Ross. I do agree with you, but, you know, this is the whole point of a project. So you can't solve it all in one summer. Thanks everyone for watching. Loved the show this morning. So much to talk about United at the moment, and nice to just recap the transfer stuff and then get into some deeper stuff. I've got a few things like that I want to talk about over the next few days as well, around the homegrown stuff as well, and touched on it a little bit there about this issue we've got about players coming back to training that shouldn't be here, and you know, a lot of our good players won't be training until August, which is very close to the Fulham game. We've got to hit this season running. We've got some tough games in the first 3 games. We've got Liverpool, so we can't afford to. We've made mistakes in the past where we think we can go into the first couple of games with the sort of reserves, and we've paid the price. So we need to be really on it from day one. Really enjoyed the show. Absolute legends. Make sure you smash a like. Please do subscribe to the channel, by the way. That needs changing because we're on the road to 1.9 million, which would get us very close to 2 million, which is an amazing thing to achieve for this community. So make sure you're subscribing, bottom right hand corner. I'm on the 2 o'clock show today, so I will see you at 2 o'clock unless anything happens before that. And we've got an 8 o'clock show tonight, which is a real treat because there's no Euros. So looking forward to that too. Take care. Have a good day. I'm sure there's going to be more news for us to react to throughout the day as well. Speak to you in a bit.